I'm so glad that you decided to join me for this follow-up to our two segments on conscious commentary where we're covering synchronicity spikes. They've been going on in excess, I would say, for about 4 to 5 weeks. I've been hearing from a lot of you, and I wanted to get back to you straight away with a special guest who we're going to do a deep dive, let's just say, in terms of what may be causing these synchronicities. Is this a true process of ascension? Have we been upgraded? Or is there something else going on, or both? Well, to join me in that conversation, I'm so delighted to introduce you to Elana Freeland. Elana is a passionate researcher of, I would say, exotic technologies. She's an author, most famously for her book, Under an Ionized Sky. So yes, we are going to be talking about remote technologies as they have to do with not only geoengineering, but transhumanism, something that, as I said in a previous episode, has been talked about quite a bit lately. So we're going to go into that. But the main thing that I want to share with you is that this was such an incredibly connected conversation, because it wasn't about, as I've said, it's not about this or that, it's about this and that. If these synchronicities are happening in excess, what role might artificial intelligence be playing in this barrage? Moreover, or I should say on an equal playing field, is there an ascension process going on? Did something happen in January? I tend to think something did. I also tend to think there may be some intersection between the synthetic and the organic. So this is what we talked about. So without further ado, I present to you my conversation with Elana Freeland. Enjoy. Elana, I cannot tell you how much I've been looking forward to this chat with you. You know, after my first conscious commentary episode where I introduced this very curious string of extremely persistent synchronicity episodes that were happening to me, and discovered it was also happening to so many other people. And then when I learned that many of these synchronicities, including my own, have been directly related to technology, and we're going to elaborate on that shortly, I got to thinking, what if there's something else going on? And when I say something else, I mean something other than just spiritually oriented experiences or psi experiences or ESP encounters. What if there's a synthetic component to at least some of these synchronicities that have been happening to so many people lately? And that's when I knew I had to ask you if you would come onto the show. And I was keeping my fingers crossed tightly until I heard from you, and you were so gracious to get right back to me, and so delighted that you agreed to come on right on the heels of a series of appearances you just wrapped up in California. So first off, a big thank you, Elana, for taking the time and in such short notice to have this special and important discussion with me.
Thank you, Alexis.
So I want to set this conversation up within the proper context. Now, you and I, of course, just talked offline and we're totally in sync, but for everyone who's listening, in the last month or so, people have been reporting these very strange synchronistic experiences, particularly since a rare planetary event was said to have occurred on January 12th of this year. Now, this is referred to as a cosmic or archetypal conjunction, where essentially a convergence of powerful energies created a spike in the frequency of the planet. This is said to have not happened for at least 2,000 years, probably more. Now, it's believed that the heart of this spike occurred at Uluru in the Northern Territory of Australia, where I just happened to be lecturing at the Cosmic Consciousness Conference at the time. Since then, Elana, many people, synchronistically, have been reporting all sorts of anomalous incidents in their day-to-day lives, including and especially synchronicity. Now, although I certainly cannot say, nor will I directly attribute these occurrences to what happened on January 12th, it is a bit curious to me as to whether we may be seeing some sort of residual effect from what took place in January. But the bottom line is, regardless of the impetus for what's going on, I'm convinced something definitive is happening right now, completely out of the norm. So just to cut to the chase, Elana, I'd love to start this conversation, your initial thoughts on what you think may be happening right now.
It's very difficult for me to accept anything from the old standard of human life on Earth anymore because of the all the research I've done and the books I've written about the space fence, which is, all the patents are owned by Lockheed Martin, the technology of HARP, High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project up in Gakona, the control over the ionosphere that came from the HARP experiments. There's so much going on now in our ionized atmosphere just here on Earth, in the troposphere. And then that's not even counting what's going on up in the stratosphere, the magnetosphere, the ionosphere, et cetera. I mean, my consciousness, my daily consciousness, unlike many people, rests in this huge revolution going on in space itself and the planetary Earth. So when I think of spirituality and spiritual experiences, including the getting tapped into that marvelous law that Carl Jung years and years ago told us about, the law of synchronicity. And basically the law of synchronicity is when your consciousness is in a certain area, if it is a growth area, this is what it used to be. If it's a growth area for you, then all kinds of things will start coming toward you on some sort of frequency level to repeat the same terms, the same concepts, the same experiences that seem to come out of nowhere that one could not have foreseen. You would be so affirmed by the cosmos, and that was great because you could depend on it as being sort of a guide that you're on the right track. Now things are different. I would say they've been different ever since MK Ultra, the terrible CIA program born of the paperclip Nazis brought into America during the 50s and on. Ever since then, the mind has become a target of sorts, and the processes of the mind are being are potentially can be manipulated remotely, and now we're in a dilemma because I've had spiritual experiences when I was younger. I had very large ones that really sent me in the direction I'm in now, and have to do with becoming who I am on the earth this lifetime and doing my job here. So these experiences were tremendously valuable and pivotal for me, and I could pretty much at that time depend on it being real, not virtual in any way. But now I think we're going to all have to become a little bit aware of the technology that can produce experiences in us on the thought level, on the feeling level, on the visionary level. That are coming to us remotely. I mean, I recently was talking with someone in California about certain experiences that they were having, and I was saying, how do you know that it wasn't generated in Langley, Virginia? And that's always my term for the CIA, even though I know now that they're in the Rockies. Their headquarters are actually in the Rockies, where there's some nice solid granite under them as they're messing with our skies. So how do we know? And only the person who has the experience will be the one who knows, because these are so ultimately private, ultimately cosmic, where private and cosmic come together, because we are spiritual beings on the earth having material existence. So how will we know? Well, if you don't know the technology, you may leap to conclusions that perhaps you won't be able to depend on the experience as being lasting. Certainly synchronicity, when I have synchronicities, um, if I'm not around my computer, then I do completely accept them because I don't have a cell phone. I refuse to own a cell phone. It's a military weapon. And in the work I do, I'd like to stay alive and competent as long as I possibly can. So I don't own one because I know one thing. Your cell phone can be easily pulsed with frequencies that can send your thoughts in a certain direction, can give you thoughts that you would never have, violent thoughts, awful
Mm-hmm.
thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
You can have feelings suddenly arise in you for no reason that life seems to be bringing to you. So, so the cell phone itself is a dubious factor. If it's not in your environment and you're not near your computer and you're always surrounded. If you're living in any city of any size, you're always surrounded by many waves that are moving through you. So, if we can just take this as a fact of this particular time in history, this particular incarnation, if you were comfortable with that word, that's the way it is.
Mm.
And my feeling is we chose to be here. No one's here by accident.
Right. Thank.
We chose to be here during this era, and we need to learn to some degree about the technology because this is
Absolutely.
a very technological era.
Yeah. That's a lot. And listen, folks, there are, we'll use the word multi dimensions to this, what Elana is talking about. I don't know if any of you out there have been following this sort of spectrum of information. This is obviously a deep rabbit hole, but I want to isolate one technology, if you will, that I know that you've spoken quite at length about and are quite erudite about, and that has to do with nanotech. Let's talk about nanotech. And again, folks, we're having this conversation within the context of what seems to be a barrage of synchronistic events that are happening with people. But what piqued my interest in having Elana on had to do with the amount of synchronicities that involved technology being a part of the synchronicity. This is what we're setting the table for. Let's talk
Right.
about nanotech a bit. And if you could just explain what it is, how it's used, and how nano is in our very midst, including in our bodies, and how,
Yes.
if at all, this might explain some of these eerie connections that we're calling synchronicity may be happening. If you're enjoying this episode and want to get more conversations about all things intriguing, inspiring, and unusual, be sure to subscribe to Higher Journeys on YouTube. And once you do, don't forget to hit that notification bell to receive an announcement as soon as a new episode is posted. And now, back to our show.
Yes. I'm so glad. You may be the first person, Alexis, that wants me to talk about nanotechnology because now we're going really deep into the rabbit
Let's
hole.
go there. We might as
Okay.
well.
So I started out with chemtrails, right? The jets in the sky that are leaving these long trails that turn into a cirrus-looking cloud cover. That was years ago. And I knew it from Clifford Carnicom, the independent scientist who is still a very good friend of mine. He in the 90s was measuring all that stuff coming that he could see in the New Mexico, once deep blue azure skies.
Absolutely.
No longer. That does not happen anymore. So he could tell from the very get-go when this program started, run by the military and Raytheon, et cetera, that these were not contrails. So he did the measurements, he did the science. We became friends. I was there at his microscope with him for various things, seeing my blood, my blood through his microscope with little entities sticking their heads into my red blood cells and sucking the iron out of my blood. That was a huge turning point for me when I realized how real this is. So I wrote 2 books on this topic, going deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole. And chapter 3 in the second book, Under an Ionized Sky, is about nanotechnology. Nanotechnology started being incorporated into American life, certainly in I'd say 1990. It had been around. We've had nano size. It's a reference to a size, and the size is 1 billionth of a meter. So it's something we can't see. A nanotechnology, on the other hand, is not natural because certainly bacteria, viruses, they are nano-sized. Do you see what I mean? We have a lot of nano-sized things here on the Earth, but now we have a nanotechnology, a nano manufacturing going on. And the way they manufacture with nano machines, they're little machines eventually, is they can, it's going to be hard to believe for people, but they can do it on an atomic level. So a nano can be 5 nanometers wide to 50 nanometers to 100 nanometers to 1,000 nanometers, etc. And this can be a build out, building all sorts of things. I suppose you could build a building with nano technology. You would need to have assemblers. Those are specialized nano-sized entities that can then they have like little arms. You can see films of them if you look carefully on the internet, and they're building with atoms. I mean, it's outrageous, and it's cheap. They're using things from the periodic table, metals, etc. But what happens to the nano assembly when it's done is kind of incredible, because these nano, and I call them nanobots, nano robots. Mm-hmm. They're robots because they do have a consciousness, not on an individual level. Not one nano has consciousness, but when they assemble together into something, or simply as a phalanx, a moving army, you might say, of nanobots, then you have a consciousness in them where they move together, like when you see birds in the sky. Sometimes they'll
in
turn
synchronicity
on a dime together, or you'll see ants moving together.
Yeah.
So it's a hive mind, and the consciousness is now being accepted to be called a swarm. They are a swarm, and inside them, not all of them, but within their swarm are nano-sized computers, literally computers, and they are transmitters and receivers. So these microprocessors are programmed so that the swarm will do its master's command coming from afar. And I call those people running on their monitors with their algorithms. I call them the laptop boys, and they will the nanobots will report to them, or be simply in stasis waiting for a command, a programmed command. So now we have again another part of nature, in a sense, that's been weaponized. Mm-hmm. And it is the habit of technology in history, at least in Western technology, that it begins by being weaponized, and then there are other uses that can come through manufacturing. Like now we have nano-sized filler in cosmetics, packaged foods, clothing, new cars, etc. It's prolific everywhere, because as a filler, it's very cheap to use. And the military, of course, latched on to the nanos very quickly. And those nanos are in those chemical trails, and they are carrying, they are in the chemicals that are being delivered and distributed by the jets and the rockets and the drones that we see in the sky. What is the purpose of that? Well, that has to do with the secret space program. That has to do with very large agendas that are being unfolded now that they have the technology by which to control the ionosphere. And the ionosphere gives them the ability to basically electrify our atmosphere, and then they need to add a lot of chaff, the military calls it, a lot of tiny, tiny particles in order to have many, many thousands, millions, trillions of wireless operations in our atmosphere. All of this goes toward that, but we're breathing it.
Right.
We're down here at the
I
bottom
want
of
you to
the
kind of,
well,
yeah, I'm
and
sorry,
we're
not to cut.
breathing it.
I'm sorry.
So we
Yeah.
have the nanobots in us.
Okay.
Now, some of them are sensors. They're releasing, they've had big headlines saying that they're releasing trillions of sensors in the upper atmosphere to help with weather modification, to fight global warming, to fight climate change, et cetera, et cetera. All of that is pretty much disinformation. But those sensors are not disinformation. They are really, really there. A lot of them start spinning with the Earth, end up around the equator as a ring of metals, and are fantastic for communication. And this is what I meant by space fence lockdown: is by what's going on in space and what's going on down here in radar installations, NextRads, cell towers, Gwen towers, cell phones. All of this has to do with we're sandwiched in between. So we're very vulnerable. And that's without even looking at the fact that we're loaded with these nanobots. So when Elon Musk gets up there and talks about his neural mesh, and how you will need surgery, a minor surgery, in order to be able to have the neural mesh implanted in your body, so you can fight or resist or claim your own individuality in the presence of the incursion of artificial intelligence units that are everywhere now, running operations. He's being a little disingenuous because, or maybe he doesn't even know. He hasn't been informed. But these nanobots being inside of us, that is their MO. They make a neural mesh on their own. That's how they reproduce. They're self-replicating, and according to their commands and their programming, they will make a mesh inside of us to produce a network in our body. We won't feel it. We won't suddenly, turn into a Frankenstein or anything like that. But we will have a neural mesh, a neurons-based network in us, and this is what they're talking about when the transhumanist guys say, "Oh, it's going to be wonderful. The internet is going to be everywhere." This is what they mean.
Yeah.
It's going to be, yes, everywhere, and we're going to be plugged into it. So when you have something going on outside, say it's just a simple advertising. Some people are now reporting that they're on their computer and they had a thought about getting a new pair of boots, and suddenly on the computer, here come the ads for boots.
Right. Well, that's what these synchronicities are essentially.
Yes.
Yeah.
These are not true
Some of them.
synchronicities. These are technologically oriented. And because we're now electronic beings, in a way, we're all cyborgs now, because we have this technology in us. Even if we don't have a titanium hip or knee, we definitely are chipped with billions of nanobots, because we're breathing them every day. So that's why this whole movement is now beginning in the anti-geoengineering movement that I'm a member of on the internet. It's just an internet movement with a few groups that are really very active. That we are now pursuing. How do we get these nanobots out of us?
Right.
I mean, if we're breathing them in every day, most of them will not go out in the urine, the feces, the sweat at all. They will lodge themselves according to their programming,
Right. That's what it,
lodge themselves in various parts. And they will often, if you have a troubled area in your body, they will be drawn to that area, like joints or something like that. So now we have, in a way, another parasite in us, but a very different kind of parasite than the ones we've had before. We also have flora and fauna in our intestinal tract. We're accustomed to these little bacteria that help us digest our food and assimilate and all that. But these are machines. These are what are now being called in patents and papers living machines. So they have the ability to swarm. And if a 5G gets set up around in my area, it's possible that that 5G, with its millimeter wave power, the smaller the wave, the greater the power, it's possible that they could then send a frequency by means of the 5G that will suddenly activate all of our nanobots
mm-hmm.
and produce well, an epidemic, a pandemic. I mean, are you getting the
I
picture?
absolutely do. I want to do this though because this is obviously a thesis on just the whole nanotechnology and first wanting to distill. Let me see if I understand, and I think I do, and I'm sure our very bright audience does as well. What we're talking about, folks, are these nano-sized, what Elana refers to as bots that are smart, that are raining down from our skies as one means, but only one. They are invariably getting into our system and perhaps creating an interface between, and I'm just distilling, between us and the technology that we are interpreting as authentic synchronicities. In other words, where there's literally an intrinsic link between the nanobots within us and the device that we are in the midst of. Am I understanding that correctly? I'm totally bringing this down to the bottom line here.
Right. Sounds
Okay.
good. Yes.
Okay, great. Now, I want to say something. This is very important that I say this to. I call my audience the journeyers on the episodes that we did on synchronicity. I want to say, look, there's so much that we don't know that's going on, not only from a technological perspective, but from a metaphysical. I am still not discounting, Elana, I don't think you are either, that there concurrently may be something quite phenomenal going on organically, and that there may, in fact, be an intersection of the two. In fact, we talked about this offline. Could it be, excuse me, that some of the individuals behind the technology are also aware of the metaphysical implications of this time and are creating sort of a connect point? So it A, will be harder to distinguish where it's coming from, but B, leveraging the natural and inherent power of the planet and of us.
Yes, it's absolutely true. And these are what President Kennedy, a week before his death, was talking about in a speech he gave. I think it was at the American University, about secret societies and how he wanted to rope in secret societies because they are absolutely not democratic. And so what we have is we have occult brotherhoods at the very top of some of our technology that I'm sure that many well-intentioned scientists, given that they are on a need to know, they have a need to know basis for their clearances, and they are compartmentalized, so they do not even know what their research will go toward. They do not know about the what's going on at the very top in the occult sector of those running NASA, NOAA, the National Health Federation, all of the organizations that we have that are key to keeping this machinizing of the Earth, the weaponizing of planet Earth in motion. And where that crossroad is, I think what I'm saying to people is, I mean, I have a spiritual life. My spiritual life is fine so far. I have nanos in me. I do not have the Morgellons sores that often people will recognize as being a nanotechnology condition. I do not have that yet at this point, but my consciousness is very much my own. And yet, I am recommending to people everywhere when I go and give talks or on my Facebook site, which is considerable, and my own site, I am recommending that instead of allowing oneself to simply be emotional and in a feeling way about their spiritual life, to really begin to develop and strengthen the ability to think, the ability to concentrate, to read, to remember what you read, to be able to debate point by point with someone rather than jumping to judgment, jumping to emotional conclusions, because we really need to understand the technology so that we know the difference
Absolutely.
between our
Yeah.
spirituality and the technology that's all around us, and possibly encroaching upon us or attempting to encroach upon us in our vulnerable points.
Absolutely. I've got to quote you here because I just heard you say this, and this is a perfect time to bring it in, and I love it. You said, Elana, consciousness is like the immune system of the spirit.
Hmm. Yes,
There it
it is.
is. So, and this needs to be taken to heart, everyone. As the days and weeks and years go by, and as the technologies advance, and perhaps our own inner technology, if you will, it may, if you're not conscious, become harder to distinguish between the two. I always say there's an inner GPS, there's an inner Wi-Fi. It's always been there. Now more than ever, it's time to kick it in because we have to live defensively. And to be able to see clearly, we will have to be, first of all, it's very easy. Turn off the devices and go outside. I heard you talk about earthing or grounding, which I'm a big advocate of.
Hmm.
These two are coexisting. I call it the dichotomy of consciousness at the precipice of change. We are at a dichotomy, which is quite exciting, frankly, because it really puts the onus on us to make choices. So I just wanted to add that. I loved your quote, by the
Fantastic.
way.
Yeah, yeah. And it is. I mean, the immune system needs to be protected with good eating and good practices for sleep. But you mentioned earlier, Alexis, that this is we are under assault. There is no question
Hmm.
about it. And the pineal gland is under assault. So if people are having trouble sleeping, there is a reason for that. The pineal gland produces the melatonin. The fluoride in the water really makes the pineal gland get hardened and calcified. Uh, the pineal gland is our beacon for our connection at night with the spiritual world as we leave our bodies and go into the cosmos that
Hmm.
we are from, in order to talk with the wise ones, in order to go over our day and pull out what we know is true from what are the lies. And then, of course, we come back into our bodies, which are now, should be from deep sleep, refreshed by the etheric body, uh, rebuilt all the cells, etc. But now we are at war,
Hmm.
and we do not have that system fully protected. So we need to take conscious action. That's why we're conscious beings. We can take conscious action, change our lifestyle, do this, do that, in order to take care of ourselves. But we can't do it if we're completely oblivious to the
Hmm.
technology being used against us.
Absolutely. The insomnia is insane right now, including
Yes.
with
Oh, and
me.
I'm sorry I called you Alexia. I know
No,
someone named
I didn't even
Alexia, but
catch
you
that.
are
I've
Alexis,
been
right?
called worse. No worries at all. Let's stay with this. Insomnia. I have heard so many people for a long time, but I think it's increasing exponentially, uh, getting off the charts here. Agreed. In fact, I just had an interesting conversation with an individual while in Sydney last month about whether it's calcified or not and what we can do to mitigate if it is. Do you have any suggestions? And I know that there's no pat answer and there's no particular manual, but any suggestions one might do to start well, you want to decalcify, of course, the pineal. We need that. That is our beacon. But in terms of the insomnia, I know magnesium has been recommended. What do you do? May I ask that you could recommend?
Okay, so just the very physical basis of sleep. First of all, I sleep on a bed that has no metal in it.
Yeah,
because metal is a conductor.
that's right.
So that's very important. My head faces north or east, along with the magnetic current of the geomagnetic field that is in our Earth. If you can, turn all electricity off in the place where you sleep. Sometimes you have access to the power box and you can just flip a switch and that area will be dead until you turn it back on. Another thing would be the cell phone. A lot
Absolutely.
of people use the alarm clock on the cell phone.
Oh, yeah.
I recommend highly, just remember, when you turn your cell phone off or put it in airplane mode, it's not off. It is searching for a signal. So you probably should put it in your car for overnight and check those teenage girls that they're not sleeping with it under their pillow. So those things, turn your router off for the night, for the whole house. These are just simple steps to see what it does to your sleep life, because I do know that for targeted individuals who are being targeted by electromagnetic weapons, the perpetrators can easily use the 60 hertz in your walls, as well as the fiber optic cable running outside your house, as well as nearby cell towers, etc., in order to target you. But it's still a very good practice to really think of electromagnetics and their disposition when you're attempting to sleep. And this is a very great opportunity for consciousness development, because we're dealing with a technology that's absolutely invisible. So you can't see it. You often can't feel it unless it's a microwave attack, and then you'll definitely feel pain. But the idea that to see into the invisible, this is something that is very spiritual. And yet to do that, you're going to have to use your thinking to understand how the technology works on a simple basis of just how it works, so that you could literally, like I can do now, I can literally just kind of look over an area and immediately I can see where the wiring is, where the waves are probably traveling, what is, if it's a phased array antenna beaming out in all directions, or if it's more contained, like a 4G system, a 3G. So I've taught myself to see. I can't see visually, but I can see with my mind. And this is a fantastic skill, and I want to get better and better at it. So that's why I'm studying more and more science on this.
That's fantastic. Oh, you're such a self-starter. I love it. I tend to be as well. What I've been working on is strengthening my peripheral vision. I don't know where the impetus for that came from. It just felt right. So when I do my meditation practice, which I've been doing off and on since I was 13, I find myself not really looking ahead anyway. Let's say when I open my eyes when I'm finished, rather than looking at what's in front of me, I'll focus on my Indian style pose. So I'll be focusing on the lower part of my body. And I found myself doing that, Elana. And then I said, well, if I can look straight ahead and still see my legs here in the cross-legged pose, let me just practice seeing how far back I can see peripherally. And I started integrating that into my meditative practice. And something said to me, I think if that can be strengthened, clairvoyance would be strengthened, because typically when we see subtle energy or the invisible, right, we see it how? Peripherally. So that's something that I do, not every day, but on occasion when I meditate. So there are things that we can do. I think it's Look, guys, this may seem like a very sobering discussion to you all because we don't typically talk about this sort of thing, but there's always something, nothing is in vain, as I say, and there's always something that can be positively derived from the great information Elana is giving us. So you're right. This is a time to really exercise the breadth and scope of our consciousness, for sure.
Yes, yes. And with thinking, people often think that thinking is I'm going to go to the store and get a quart of milk, or that it's conceptual. It's just ideas. It's not real. The truth is, Rudolf Steiner, who I have studied for 40 years or so, he says that thinking is a spiritual activity. And now I find in some of the essays I read from scientists on plasma and on quantum physics that thinking is actually not done by the brain. It is actually an activity taking place on a quantum level of reality. And so to strengthen your thinking is to strengthen that quantum part of yourself that could even take authority over the nanobots, take human authority over the nanobots, and possibly even AI systems.
Absolutely. I'm laughing. I don't know if you can hear. Microphone picks up everything. The moment you mentioned Rudolf Steiner, guess whose name I'm looking at right in front of me? I was going to bring him up next. You know, it's synchronicity. I think this is organic synchronicity, frankly. I don't think it's the nanobots at all. I think we're just seeing eye to eye.
Yes.
I was going to bring up Rudolf Steiner because I know you speak of him so much and fondly, who talked about, I guess at one point he said that invariably the human being would have to learn to have a relationship with the machine. Let's talk about that. What a thinker he was. What a contemplator.
An amazing man. And the problem is that the brotherhoods who are in alliance with forces perhaps that are inimical to humanity, to the development of human consciousness, they are attempting to bring the machine and a very different relationship with the machine centuries early. And that's what's going on now. We're just not prepared. After 50 years of television, I mean, I've never even owned a television. I really am opposed to it. I know what it does to my brain. I really want my brain to be able to help me think my way through the dilemmas of my time for my incarnation and the work I came to do. So for me, the machine, we have to deal with the machine. We've always had machines working for us, but now you see the danger that the machines are taking us over. It's called BCI, brain-computer interface. It is the mechanism by which the transhumanism will be accomplished, by which we all are to be controlled remotely via AI systems, algorithms, which are really nothing more than spells, like the old spells of occultists and witches and things. So that whole impetus is to control humanity, become as gods on planet Earth, and thumb their noses at the gods and at the consciousness that we were to have through centuries and centuries of being able to develop. So my relationship with my machines, I have a good one with my car.
I knew you were going to bring that. I heard you say that. Yeah.
It's a good car, and I take good care of it, just as I should, just like a pet that serves me well. And my computer, same thing. But I keep my relationship with machines to a great minimum because I simply cannot have a relationship with all of them. It's too time consuming. Too much of my consciousness would have to go into it. So I highly recommend that people really think about the law of nature, which is that nature abhors a vacuum.
That's right.
And this is why all machines, says Rudolf Steiner, have a spirit in them. as soon as they're built, a
Yeah.
spirit moves into them according to the nature of the machine and the intent of its maker. So, when Jordy Rose, who is the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer at D-Wave Computer, the quantum adiabatic computer that is just phenomenal. It's already a self-thinking entity and is used at CERN, it's used at Facebook, it's used at Google, it's used by all the great big corporations that are taking over the earth. Jordy talks about it in terms of a god, and he's not being that metaphorical because these things can really house very powerful forces that are inimical to the human being, and we need to therefore become very solid in our approach to our machines
Absolutely.
and have authority over them.
You're bringing up a subject that could take us down a whole another rabbit hole, and I'm tempted to open it just to go down a little bit. As you talk about the first of all, the concept, when you talk about the possibility of a measure of consciousness, or as Steiner talked about, within inanimate objects, makes me think of something that's being talked about amongst more materialistic scientists these days, having to do with something called panpsychism. Are you familiar with that term?
No, not at all.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to look up, and I only know a tidbit about it, but essentially panpsychism says that there is a certain portion of individuated consciousness that exists in all things, including the inanimate. This is what's being studied right now by the materialists, which I find interesting. Interesting because it transitions completely into what you're talking about, these companies like D-Wave, et cetera, that are looking at they're looking at making these computers and other pieces of technology conscious. This takes us again, Elana, back to how much knowledge do the powers that be have about what, as an example, Tibetan Buddhists practiced in conjuring other forms of consciousness as a throw off of themselves, called the tulpa.
Yes.
This is in our literature. This is in our occult literature. And I'm sure that there are many within the modern age that are looking to parlay this into technology, are well aware of all of that. They're really
Yes.
just going into ancient practices and bringing it into modern times.
Yes, and because of my involvement with Rudolf Steiner, I'm very much involved in what is known as the Western mysteries. Many people have turned to the Eastern practices, thinking that there is no Western mystery tradition in the West because it's all materialism. But that is not true. And certainly the Tulpa practices of Tibetan Buddhism are very dubious to me.
Hmm.
But I am not of that, those are not my people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm involved in Western mysteries and in digging down into the not just the nature of matter, but the mystery of matter.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
and that is what the Western Brotherhoods also study, but perhaps with more ideas of control than
Yes.
simply becoming conscious.
Absolutely. Oh, this is a fascinating discussion. They all relate. They all relate.
They do.
Uh, I don't know if you had a chance. If I had time, I would go to some of the comments, beautiful comments that people have left for the conscious commentary. We'll make sure we have a link so you can go back and find out how this conversation started, everyone. Okay, so tons of comments on both episodes. Not all of them had to do with the technology link. In other words, I think of in my example, and this happens all the time, when I'm cooking in the kitchen, I do have the TV on occasion. I will invariably think of what I'd like to make, and it's repeated on television. Or sometimes I'll say it out loud. A lot of people related to that. There were a lot of people that talked about incidents of synchronicity that had nothing to do with technology. So I certainly want to acknowledge that as well. And really say, look, there could be something quite magnanimous going on in the natural world as well. But the caveat is it may be hijacked right now, or the attempt for hijacking that. So we do need to be aware. I also want to bring up something else that people have been talking about that will relate directly to the research that you've done. And that is a high-pitched ringing that has been happening in not one, but both ears. It's been happening to me, happened yesterday, happened last week. Some of our listeners have been talking about that as well. Can you speak to that? Now we're kind of vacillating between the spiritual and the scientific. This is a real convergence conversation between the two. So we'll let it go where it needs to go. But are you familiar with the high pitched sounds? What's going on there?
Yes. Well, right away, it's tinnitus, and people, if you go to a doctor, he'll look at it as just a physical phenomenon of the middle ear. But no, it's possibly a targeting situation, possibly a wave moving through. The person's not being targeted at all, but the wave for targeting someone else is moving straight through their house or their place of work or whatever. They're picking up on a frequency that really produces a ringing. Now, most targeted individuals I know definitely have the tinnitus. And to counter it, whatever its locus of, whether it's an attack or you're simply in the pathway of a wave moving through, there are many frequency videos, right, that you can get, 435 hertz,
yes,
etc. And I think that if you use those consciously and just make sure that it's not on the bad side, like see how you feel. I do know quite a few targeted individuals. That's a whole other show.
Do you want to, I know, is there any way you could give for the people that don't, I'm well familiar with the gangs talking and targeted individuals, or TIs, I think they're called. Is there any way you could give us maybe just a little tidbit for those that don't know what that is? Or is that too?
Yes. Okay, so what's going on with targeting is it's basically two-pronged, is how I see it. And it's the use of electromagnetic weapons, usually state-of-the-art. Maybe they haven't even been made public yet because they're using people as guinea pigs, so they're targeting them with these weapons. Some of the weapons we definitely know what they are, and they will, with frequency and possibly triangulation, possibly with satellite triangulation with towers, that sort of thing, definitely for a long-term targeted individual. They often use satellite, dedicated satellite. So anyway, this person will initially feel, have various things going on in their mind that they make them feel uncomfortable. It's not really their thoughts, or they may feel their sleep has been destroyed. They're not able to get into deep sleep at all. There'll be a lot of symptoms that go on early on where it's because most people don't know this technology is going on a broad level. They will think that maybe they're going crazy. It's some sort of stomach problem or whatever, but nothing really remedies it. And eventually they begin to, the targeting is ramped up where maybe they hear voices in their head. So now they have the V2K, it's known as voice to skull technology, microwave hearing, various signals that they're somehow being remotely controlled. They can be put to sleep instantly, whether they're driving a car or they're sitting in a theater with someone. They hear people speaking to them from behind them, but it's really the voice to skull that makes it sound like someone speaking to them. Many things that just basically destroy the naturalness of their lives. Sure. And my guess is there are, I would say, 1.5 million people who are experiencing this in the United States alone.
In the United States alone. I heard you say that.
Yes,
do you think it's expanding? Do you think the net of, is it becoming more widespread Or are they ramping it up?
Yes, it is. But now you see with the 5G, and now they have the 6G ready, already online, ready to come up, and then there's the 7G coming.
Oh my God.
We will eventually be under an entire AI system, and it will be, we'll all be targeted, is how I look at it. That's another reason that I'm recommending to people to start really doing calisthenics with their thinking, to really develop their consciousness, not from just emotions and feelings,
That's right.
but from actual thought and the ability to hold on to a thought. That's why it's good to read my Under an Ionized Sky. It's by no means an easy book to read, and I'm recommending people do it in groups if they possibly can,
I think that's
so that
great.
they can help each other through. Because most people are falling asleep. They can only get like one or two paragraphs read. They don't remember what they read. They don't understand what they read. They're in a chem fog in their brain.
I understand.
And to fight through that, we're going to have to do like you would pump iron at a health club to get the muscle of the thinking going again after over 50 years of television and alpha wave. Because you can't
Absolutely.
think in alpha wave. You've got to think in beta, and hopefully someday maybe even gamma wave. So yeah, that's what I'm recommending. And for targeted individuals, I know quite a few, as you can imagine, and I'm on shows, European shows, since Raoni Kilda died. A
I
wonderful, wonderful
know. I miss her
Finnish.
so much.
Yes,
Yes, I'm well
yeah. Since
familiar
she
with.
died, somehow they're ringing my buzzer now, because I, of
Mm,
course, know that targeting is going on and have studied the directed energy weapons, and really feel great compassion and trying to help people find meaning in that life, which I at this point I might know a couple of people who got off those lists, but I don't really know any more than that. I think
mm,
it's what used to be called LifeLog, and
mm.
that's the two pronged. It's experimentation with these directed energy weapons, and then the other is the training of agents as to how to use them.
Hmm.
That's often the two big reasons that people are used for this program, and it is a program. And I would say that all the telecom corporations at some level are very aware of this.
Mm. We're going to end on a positive note because we've kind of been dipping in and out of, the positive potential, the dire straits, the whole, it's all in there. I'm going to say again, dichotomy. But if we can manage to wrap our arms and our heads around the fact that these are still exciting times, and you've given such amazing suggestions about, what did you call it, mental calisthenics. I love it. Now, we're seeing the same way, Elana. Whenever I'm feeling like I'm in a fog, I go to my bookshelf and reach for Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey.
That's
I'm only
great.
kidding. No, I did do that once, and I said, "Oh God, I can't."
That
But
would be wonderful.
I
But
have it on my
I
shelf.
could say something positive. Number one, I'm thrilled to be here now. I couldn't have asked for a better battle. I couldn't have asked because I'm a
Yes.
warrior through and through,
Yeah.
and I'm thrilled to be here now in this time of transition from one age to another is basically what
Absolutely.
this is.
Yeah.
And second of all, I'm always comforted by what Rudolf Steiner said. He said that the human being is the religion of the gods.
Ah.
And what he meant by that is we are the only being developing free will while living in a material body. And I definitely feel the challenge of that. And it's very exciting to be on the earth, and I love the earth very
I
much. I
do
mean, the
too.
earth and the human being, we're like this.
Yeah, that's
Those
so
people
cool.
who think if we got rid of the humans, the earth would be fine. No, our destiny lies together, the two of us. So I'm fighting for the earth's destiny as well as the human destiny of developing consciousness through serial lifetimes in which we can practice and we can learn what works and doesn't work. They can wipe out religion if they want. They can make it seem that everything is material, but there are many of us who know better, and we must have the courage for the future generations to fight the fight of this time. This is our watch. Let's make the most of it together as we develop our spirituality in the midst of technology.
I don't think there's anything else that needs to be said. You have just brought this show to a perfect conclusion, so I'm going to leave it there. Elana Freeland, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence and for your courage. And will you come back? You know, I'm going to ask you back, right? We've got so much more to cover. Everyone, go to Elana's website. I'm going to have you give the name of the website. We're obviously going to have links to all of her books, and I know she's working on one right now. But tell us your website for us.
Just elanafreeland.com,
Perfect.
lowercase.
Okay.
And I owe it all to my web mistress. I rarely have time to even go to my site. Thank goodness for her. And then I have 2 Facebook sites that are closed. You have to ask permission to join. And the one I recommend for these things is Elana Freeland, Under an Ionized Sky.
Beautiful. So perhaps we can get a link for that. Everyone, you'll have to go. I'm sure you'll let the journeyers, and I got a good group here. So, and they're very, very passionate about all of the broad and exciting subjects that we talk about. So once again, Elana, thank you. We're going to have to shut it down for now, but we're going to leave folks with a lot to chew on. So let's get chewing, shall we? It's all about consciousness, and it is an exciting time. So thank you. And thank you to everyone, as always, for listening and watching these days to Higher Journeys. We'll talk to you real soon. Take care.